everyone, my name is Krista Barbieri and I'm here to talk to you guys about visual impairment. Some background information. The Individuals with Disabilities Education Act, also known as IDEA, officially defines the category as an impairment in vision that, even with correction, adversely affects a child's educational performance. The term includes both partial sight and blindness. Some individuals are legally blind, which can mean they are fully blind or have lost enough sight to be considered blind. The American Foundation for the Blind estimates that 10 million people in the United States are visually impaired. The National Dissemination Center for Children and Disabilities reports that the rate of occurrence for visual impairments in individuals under the age of 18 is at the rate of 12.2 per thousand. Some background information. Some common traits for someone with a visual impairment are irregular eye movements, for instance, eyes that don't move together or that appear unfocused. The second one is unusual habits, such as covering one eye or frequently rubbing their eyes. The third one is sitting abnormally close to a television or holding a book close to their face. The World Health Organization uses this chart to classify visual impairment. Now, this is a chart that I'm sure we've all seen before, either in elementary school in the nurse's office or at your eye doctor. This is a commonly used chart. Each line corresponds with a score, and it basically runs mild to medium to severe visual loss, all the way up until total blindness. Some defining features. Visual impairment can manifest as a reduced visual activity, which is sharpness of vision measured by the ability to differentiate letters, numbers at a given distance. The second one is contrast sensitivity, when the contrast between objects and their background is reduced, a very important measure of visual function, especially in situations of low light, fog, or glare. Visual field loss, loss of vision either above or below, loss of vision at the sides, or central vision. Photophobia is extreme sensitivity to light. Diplopia is double vision, and then visual distortion, any type of impairment that affects your ability to see. Now, who does this affect? Visual impairment affects everyone at any age group. Our visual sense is what gives us access to learn about our surroundings. Without vision, it causes an obstacle for individuals learning because they have to obtain the information in a different way. Usually when you're walking down the street, you make observations, you listen to people, they give you facial expression. These are all things that can happen to people with visual impairments. But for this presentation, I will discuss how it affects students in their educational setting. For manifestation in education realm, current special education demographics obtained from the American Foundation for the Blind in 2009 report that there are 93,600 students who are visually impaired or blind. They also reported 55,200 students who are legally blind and 5,500 braille readers. According to Project IDEAL, teachers need to classify their students under these three levels in order to better the students' learning environment. The first one is low vision. Students use their vision as their primary sensory channel. The second one is functionally blind. Students can use limited vision for function tasks but need their tactile and auditory channels for learning. Totally blind is students use tactile and auditory channels for learning and functional tasks. For manifestation and education realm continued, a third classification system does exist. It is based on the beginning of the visual impairment itself. The first one is congenital, which occurs during fetal development at birth or immediately following birth. Visual impairment is present before visual memory has been established. Adventitious, it occurs after having normal vision either through a hereditary condition or trauma. Visual memory may remain. Many students with a visual impairment also have a coexisting disability, and visually impaired children are often developmentally delayed in the areas of gross and fine motor skills and perception. Strategies to provide support and assistance. It is believed that 80% of what children without visual impairment learn is through visual cues. So for teachers-wise, making accommodations to the classroom should always be specific to the student. But here are some basic practices that may help. The teachers should still promote independence so these students do not fall into a learned helplessness. Basically, I know some teachers might have some guilt or they might feel bad for these students, so they try to help them as much as they can. And I know they mean well, but doing their work for them is not going to help them, and they're going to not gain independence that they need. Objects in classrooms should remain in the same location. For example, desks and objects should remain in consistent locations. Sometimes teachers like to change desks around just to give more motivation to the students or whatever their reasoning is, but for the visual impaired students, that's not going to help them because then they're not going to be aware of their surroundings and it could cause some obstacles for them. Teachers should be aware of the level of vision the student has. It is very important to see how the student sees, works, and learns. Teachers should be aware of lighting if the student is light sensitive. It's also very important to use verbal cues for students who cannot see visual cues. I know some teachers use visual cues, but if they do have a visual impaired student in your class, then you should do verbal at the same time you're doing physical cues. Strategies to provide support and assistance are continued. Material is very important for these students to have. When you're handing out either books or whatever the teacher may be handing out, it is important to also hand out materials to the visual impaired at the same time and make sure they are receiving the material they needed. Some example of these materials are Braille, which is a language for blind people, which are pattern raised dots. Tactile graphics, which is images that are raised so that the visually impaired can feel them. Audio tape materials, basically the one example that came to my head is a lot of teachers like to use silent reading. If a visual impaired student is unable to read, then they might need to receive an audio tape with headphones so they can listen to the book and read in silent without disrupting other students. The next is print books for parents. Students who receive Braille books, their parents might not be able to read Braille, so therefore they need their own print books so they can help their student at home with their homework and their studying for tests. Also, highlighting is very helpful, and large print, some students don't need to have Braille, sometimes they just need maybe larger print textbooks. For technology, is also very important for students to have access to. Nowadays, they make Braille printers, screen readers, talking calculators, magnifiers. This is very, very important for a student to learn at a young age so they're able to use it in their future. This is the list of my reference, and just to talk about overall, this assignment was very, very eye-opening and very, very educational for me because I did not know much about visual impaired at all. I knew there was nearsighted and farsighted and color blindness, but did not realize there was so many other categories underneath it. Also, this is very, very helpful for me to know some of these strategies that teachers can use in their class. In my future, I know that maybe students might come to me saying, oh, how do I help this student learn this? So this is very, very good for me to understand that there's some strategies, there are ways to help these students. So overall, this is a really, really good education experience for me. Thank you, guys.